The Tokyo 2020 Paralympics marked 1 year to go to the postponed Games with a new campaign dubbed Wait for the Greats. On tonight's Sports Scene, we take a look at how African para-athletes are preparing for the global showpiece now scheduled to kick off on the 24th of August next year, besides highlighting some of the challenges they face in a year that has seen the pandemic unsettle training plans. Hello and a very warm welcome to you. This is Sports Scene here on CGTN. Great to have you joining us once again. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Also coming up, Africa Women's Para-Volley sitting champions Rwanda eye success at Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. And we speak to Papa Masata Diak as the verdict of the corruption case involving him and his father, ex-IAAF chief Lamine, looms. Welcome to the program. Now, the Paralympic Games has been an action attraction for para-sports competition for exactly 60 years now since its inception. Tokyo was supposed to host the 16th edition of the biggest international para-sporting event this year before it was pushed forward to 2021 due to the coronavirus outbreak. CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar brings us more.
During the London Olympic Games in 1948, Dr. Ludwig Guttmann, a neurologist who used to work with injured and disabled veterans following World War II, organized the first competition for wheelchair athletes. The competition, which was named the Stoke Mandeville Games, involved 16 injured servicemen and women who took part in archery. The Games grew to become the Paralympic Games, which first took place in Rome, Italy in 1960, featuring 400 athletes from 23 countries. Since then, they have taken place every 4 years. Besides the all-white teams of Rhodesia and South Africa, the first sub-Saharan African participation was at the 1968 Paralympics, when Ethiopia sent 2 male athletes to the Tel Aviv to compete in table tennis and track and field. Participation of African nations at the Paralympic Games continued to rapidly grow from then, with South Africa being the most dominant African nation with 297 medals. Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria and Nigeria complete the top 5 most successful nations at the Games. The Paralympics have since then produced great African talents, with Egypt and Nigeria popularly known for dominating in powerlifting. In track and field, Kenyan Henry Kirwa has dominated the long-distance events for years. Most notably, Beijing 2008 saw Kirwa win 3 gold medals in the men's T13 1500 meters, 5000 meters and 10,000 meter finals. Ernst van Dijk of South Africa has also been a consistent Paralympian, starting as a swimmer in Barcelona 1992 before changing course to wheelchair racing, where he became a 2-time gold medalist. Tokyo was set to host the 16th edition of the Paralympic Games this year, before the coronavirus outbreak forced the International Paralympics Committee to postpone the Games by a year, a move that the IPC President Andre Parsons says was important for the well-being of all Paralympians.
By taking this decision now, everyone involved in the Paralympic movement, including all para-athletes, can focus fully on their own health and well-being and staying safe during this unprecedented and difficult time. When the Paralympic Games do happen in Tokyo next year, they will be a spectacular global celebration of humanity coming together again as one. In the meantime, we will liaise and work closely with our athlete communities, the national Paralympic committees and international federations impacted by this postponement. Our movement is about overcoming adversity. This is what we are all about.
As the world waits for the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics next year, Africa longs to celebrate more heroes in the upcoming editions. Mohammed Abubakar, CGTN.
While the Paralympics in Tokyo will see a host of determined South African athletes aiming to bring home the medals. One particular wheelchair tennis athlete is aiming not only to qualify but also to finish with a spot on the podium. CGTN CS Duplessis with more.
Alwande Sekosana is an exciting prospect to keep an eye on. The young wheelchair tennis player who won the 2017 Senior Soweto Open as a 16-year-old refuses to let his disability get in the way of his dreams and is already targeting success as a newly turned professional player.
I feel like that's the mentality that every person living with disability should have out there, you know, because at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're all human beings, you know. Having to be born with a disability doesn't mean that it's over with your life. You have to dream big and keep pushing until you find your abilities.
The COVID-19 pandemic prevented the talented Sekosana from spending 2 months playing tournaments overseas in order to qualify for the Paralympics. But he has used his time to hit the reset button and rediscover the approach that brought him success as a junior.
I felt like, you know, as a junior, I really was so hungry to actually be there out the world, you know, and I really believed in myself, you know, as, you know, not a lot of South Africans actually get to make it in the world, because making it to the top 2 in the world was like one of my biggest highlights in my career. So I feel like I should just carry it, you know, carry that mentality and try to actually implement it on the bigger stage.
Inspired by other South African wheelchair tennis players like KG Monchane and Donald Rumpati, the former junior world number 2 is eager to make his own mark on the international circuit and in Tokyo.
And I definitely see myself as one of those, you know, South African in the podium. I know it's a very big goal to chase, but I know I can do it. I know I have the capability to do it.
The 20-year-old certainly doesn't lack any confidence and is backing himself to fight his way into the Paralympic qualification rankings in his first year as a professional. The former top junior in South Africa knows he'll need to make up for lost time after the disruptions in 2020, but is hungry to stake his claim, showcase his skills and announce himself on the global stage. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Pretoria.
Nigeria para-athletes have put the disappointment of the postponement of the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics behind them and are now focusing on showcasing their talent in Japan next year if everything goes according to plan. However, they are preparing for the Games under challenging conditions, as CGTN's Deji Badmus now reports.
This was late last year when the country's para-athletes were preparing for the final stages of their qualifiers for the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. But a couple of months later, the coronavirus pandemic broke out, leading to the cancellation of all sporting activities across the world, including the Paralympic Games. In Nigeria, even the stadium where the athletes train has remained short ever since.
Due to the fact that I've even prepared myself for the Paralympics, so I feel so sad for the Paralympics to be postponed.
Ojeleye is one of Nigeria's top para-athletes. He was among those getting ready for the final Tokyo 2020 qualifiers before the pandemic broke out. He's been keeping fit at home under the sporting lockdown, with his Paralympics dream still alive.
I'm trying all my best to make the target, to make the standard for the Paralympic next year. So we're preparing ourselves, we're trying our best to make sure that I make the time for the Paralympic.
Like Ojeleye, the captain of the national wheelchair racing team, Akonija Lili, cannot wait to resume full training.
Though we are not really started training proper because of the situation of the things, but individually and with the coach, we still do some training.
Being a para-athlete in Nigeria is tough. Funding for para-sports is quite abysmal, and athletes often train under difficult conditions to make it to national and international competitions.
For example, now you can't compare $8,000 wheelchair with $2,000 wheelchair. So we don't have the facilities. They have all the facilities to meet up the standard and all that. Like we are an African, we have power, we have everything. But the major problem is the facility and equipment.
We don't have all these important things we need for special training, like special sport facilities for training. Because the only way we can train wheelchair race, either on track or on road. But in Nigeria, there's no better road, let me use that way, and there's no safe place to tell an athlete to be on a wheelchair and start running all over the street.
Even in the face of the daunting challenges, the athletes are forging ahead. For Jeleye, nothing will stand in his way of accomplishing his lifelong dream.
My dream is, number one, to be at the Paralympic, number one. And number two, to my target, my number one target is to have a medal. And I'm sure by the grace of God and by hard working, it's going to come true.
The wheelchair racer and basketball player is determined to bring honor and pride to his country and himself against all odds. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
You're watching Sports Scene here on CGTN. Here's what's coming up. Africa women's para-volley sitting champions Rwanda eye success at Tokyo 2020 Paralympics.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now, Africa women's para-volley sitting champions Rwanda were relishing their second Paralympics outing in Japan next year before the pandemic brought their preparations to a halt. Earlier, the team had spoken to CGTN about what they were looking forward to at the Tokyo 2020 Summer Paralympics.
The Rwanda women's sitting volleyball team had already qualified for their second successive Paralympics before the event was postponed to 2021. The three-time African champions are keen on making an impact at the global showpiece.
We are still the best in Africa, but we are still learning because we have like Americans, like Croatia, like Russia. They are the big one. They are on top in the world. Yeah, we have many things to do. We have to practice more to be in the same level for those teams.
At Rio 2016, Rwanda made history by becoming the first African women's team to feature in sitting volleyball at the Paralympic Games. Having tasted the majesty of the biggest parasporting event, the team was even more determined to improve and make Tokyo 2020.
It was a very hard experience because of all the teams was very, very strong than us. But it has also been a very good experience because we learned very much from there. After Rio, we went to Netherlands for World Championship. So there we were 11 on 15 teams. So it was very good for now. Now Rwanda is ranked 8 on world. We are number 8 now.
Unparalleled in Africa, the team is gearing up to showcase the continent in Japan next year.
That is a very big responsibility. So we have to work hard. Now we are a representative of Africa, we represent Rwanda. So even for the coach, for the players, they know it is not a very easy thing. So we have to defend Africa and to defend Rwanda, as it must be.
Apart from sporting success, the team also seeks to inspire persons living with a disability across Africa at Tokyo 2020.
It means a lot of things for us, for people with disability. We show we are capable for doing many things. We're showing disability is not inability. We have to represent our country and our continental Africa. So we will go for fighting, for showing what we have in Rwanda, what we have in Africa.
The pandemic has grounded their training since March, but this team remains resolute that when action resumes, they will be ready to do Rwanda and Africa proud in Japan. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Tunisia has claimed 73 medals at the Paralympic Games since their debut at the Seoul 1988 Games. The country has lifted some restrictions imposed to curb the spread of COVID-19 on sporting activities, allowing top medal contenders and hopefuls to resume their training for the Tokyo Games in 2021. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi has more.
Rajaj Belli is a Tunisian world champion in the women's discus throw F40 class. She was hoping for a new world record in the 2021 Summer Paralympics.
The pandemic postponed my participation in the Paralympics, but I continued training at home while my coach was following me online. It's very hard to train alone. Now I'm glad to train outdoors. I still dream of a gold medal in the Summer Paralympics.
Yassine Gharbi is one of the most brilliant athletes of his generation who competes in T54 class wheelchair racing. He participated in the 2016 Paralympic Games and is a world champion in both the 400 and 800 meter races. Yassine acknowledges that training during the pandemic was extremely difficult.
Preparing for the Paralympics is already challenging. The pandemic further complicated my training, especially the T54 class wheelchair racing, because one cannot train at home. Yet I'm still determined to win a Paralympic gold come next year.
Ziad is one of the national coaches who have been monitoring the training of the Paralympic team during the general lockdown.
Following the postponement of the Tokyo Paralympic Games, the Tunisian Paralympic Committee and the Ministry of Youth and Sports have provided human and technical assistance for their athletes. The Tunisian champions are now preparing for the 2021 Summer Paralympics. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, it goes without saying that Paralympians face difficulties in preparing and competing that their able-bodied compatriots never even dream of. Uganda's para-badminton starlet Elizabeth Mwesigwa says more awareness should be accorded to Paralympians, especially in Africa. Mwesigwa had set her sights on going for gold at the Tokyo 2020 Games before the coronavirus pandemic, put a halt on all sporting activity across the globe. Mwesigwa, who was ranked first in Uganda's mixed doubles rankings and second in Africa, was forced to drop out of several international events at the start of the year due to a lack of funding. She has received backing from members of parliament in the East African nation, but says the challenges para-athletes face can sometimes be a mountain to climb.
The first thing is time. We put in our energy and plus the money. Yet, for me, I don't have money because we put in a lot. In badminton, most people, they call it it's for rich people. Yes, it might be because the material we use for badminton is too expensive. We go for the tournaments. After coming back, nothing we get. We don't get anything. Yet other people, they know that in sports there is money. I know for other people it is there, but for ours, I don't know. I was supposed to go to Brazil for the qualifiers, and I failed because of money. The money was, I wasn't have the money to go to Brazil because we had the Brazil, Peru. Those two tournaments, I failed to go because of money. But how am I going to bring gold? We don't have facilities like training ground. You can reach there, yet many people they are there. They give you few time, and maybe they can say, if you don't train from here, I can train from there. That is neglect. Okay, they separate us. able people, they don't want to train with us. And what I'm playing for, like to get, if our federation can get for us the good coaches, we can bring more medal. Yeah.
And still to come here on Sports Scene. We speak to Papa Masata Diak as the verdict of the corruption case involving him and his father, ex-IAAF Chief Lamine, looms.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
Welcome to the world today on CGTN.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
We come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Well, away from the Tokyo Paralympics, a verdict is expected in the case of former athletics chief Lamine Diak and his son Papa Masata Diak in the coming week. The former IAAF president and his son have denied charges of corruption, influence trafficking and laundering money. Earlier, we spoke to Papa Masata Diak, who's been residing in Senegal, and began by asking him about critical evidence he said he would table to prosecutors that he claimed would exonerate him fully.
Yes, indeed. I was able on the 7th of November 2019, when the French investigation came to Senegal for international regulatory commissions. I did table all the 35 questions with all the documentations and my bank account details, showing that all those accusations of receiving funds from the Russian athlete is totally unsubstantiated and totally false. I was able to give them also evidence on the television rights agreement that they claimed that was 6 million euros. It was $1.2 million and signed by the IAAF General Secretary, the Frenchman S.R. Gabriel. I was able to prove them that the VTB contract, contrary to what they are saying, is totally unlinked to any doping cases, because I signed that contract on the 29th of December 2006 with VTB, and it was renewed on the 19th of January, while the doping cases started to be called on June 2012 before the London Olympic Games. I was able to prove them that when they say that I was in a meeting on the 4th of December 2012 in Moscow, meeting the manager of Lilia Shobokova, I was able to prove them that they are totally untrue, because I proved with my passport that I was there on the 5th of December at 19 hours. So I think they were totally mismarred by my revelations, and I think that was a good case for my father and myself. First of all, I think any decision that they can take, if it's not in our favor, we can go to the Court of Appeals, to the appeal courts. But the second option is, first of all, I don't see the way they can really substantiate those accusations. the judges, the sitting judges that are doing the trial are different from the investigating judges. The investigating judges fail to prove any of their allegations because at the court of justice, you need to bring a proof. They did a lot of media campaign tarnishing our names. But in Paris, when the prosecutor said that 23 Russian athletes paid to account owned by Papa Masatajak in Singapore, they were not able to prove one single wire from Russia to Singapore, one single wire from Russia to Senegal, from any athlete. So I think I'm totally confident that the court will be in favor of my father and myself.
And that does it for this week's edition of Sports Scene. Do remember you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen now and give us a follow on our digital media platforms. Thanks for watching. We leave you now with images of the